Hello students, today I am here to teach you chapter 10 in your textbook that's called inverse proportions. So before we start inverse proportions, what are proportions? So proportions are comparison between two ratios. So here I can write down proportions are comparison between two ratios. When we take proportions, we can see two types of proportions. One is direct proportions and the second one is the inverse proportion. In certain books we call indirect proportion, but in your textbook it's called inverse proportions. In grade 9 you did direct proportions. So can you remember how you can identify direct proportions? So here when you take two variables, if one is increasing and the other also increasing in the same rate, we call those are direct proportions. So here we'll take direct proportions. If one variable, we'll take one variable increases and the other one, another variable increases by the same rate, we call those are direct proportions. Now, can you give an example? I'll take this example. Think about 1 kilo of sugar is 100 rupees. If you want to buy 2 kilos, what's the amount you have to pay? If this is 2 kilos, it's double of this amount. You have to pay 200 rupees. If it's 3 kilos, it's 3 times bigger, 300 rupees. What about 4 kilos? 100 times 4, that's 400 rupees. So here the amount, this is the amount of sugar, it's increasing. We can see the price also increasing. So this is price. So this is an example for direct proportion. So here we'll see the ratio. Now here when you take these two values, what's the ratio between amount of sugar? We can say 2 kilos and 3 kilos. That's 2 to 3. When you take the price, what's the ratio? 200 to 300. When you simplify, you can divide or multiply by any number if there's a ratio. So you can divide both sides by 100. What you get? These two zeros get cancelled out. You get same ratio. So one is increasing with the other one with the same rate. We call these are direct proportions. So here when the proportions are direct, you can easily find out the unknown values. For example, if we say A amount is B rupees, C amount D rupees. So here we can see the ratios like this. This is the amount of something and this is the price. Think about those two variables. These are unknown. We can see that when you cross multiply, you can find out the unknown value. So here, if this is direct proportion, you can write down the ratios separately and we cross multiply. So you will see a pattern. A times D is equal to B times C. So this pattern is important. When you are dealing with direct proportion questions, you can use this method to solve problems. So here, look at this one. I'll take same question and write down 2 kilos of sugar is 200. What about 5 kilos of or 6 kilos of this? So I can put the unknown value as x. We know amount increases, the price also increasing. So this is direct proportion. So we can use cross multiplication and you can find out the unknown value easily. So 2 times x, you get 2x. 6 times, that's equal to 6 times 200. So what's the x value? You can divide by 2. So you get 2 times 100, 100 times 6, 600 rupees for 6 kilos of sugar. So remember this, when the question says it's direct proportion, you write down the ratios separately and you can cross multiply. And normally, first and last one, AD is equal to BC. Now we'll look at questions related to direct proportions. In the review exercise, so you get question 1, it says number suitable, find the number suitable for the box for each of the following to be a direct proportion. So straight away it's given, this is direct. We need to find out the unknown value. So I'll teach you 2 methods. Now if you can see the ratio, you can find out without using the cross multiplication method. Now think about this one, 5 and 20. So what's the ratio? So how you get 20 from 5? You multiply by 4. So you have to do the same thing for the other side. This is 2, 2 multiplied by 4, you get 8. Or what's the other method? You can write the 2 ratios separately and we can put this is unknown letter as x and you cross multiply. 5x equals 20 times 2, 40. What is x? 40 divided by 5. You get 8. So you can use any method. If you can see the rate straight away, you can find out the answer. So we'll take the second one. 2 to unknown value, 3 to 15. Now these two given. 3 becomes 15. What's the ratio? Multiplied by 5. 3 times 5, you get 15. So what you do, you multiply 2 by 5. 2 times 5, you get 10. What about this one? 4 to something is 20 to 25. Now see, 4 becomes 20. How you get 20 from 4? You multiply by 5. 5 times 4, 20. So you do the same thing. But this number multiplied by 5, you get 25. Now we are doing the reverse process. 25 divided by 5, you get 5. What about this one? This one, 4 to 80. How you get 4 to 80? Multiplied by 20. If you want the reverse process, you do 60 divided by 20. So you get 3. So the ratio here is 3. Now we look at the second question. The daily income earned by a vehicle used in a taxi service is 8,000, while the daily cost incurred by it is 4,500. Write the ratio of the daily income to the daily cost in its simplest form. Now write down the given information. So here first thing is daily income earned by vehicle used in a taxi service is 8,000. So this is the income. So taxi income is 8,000. While the daily cost incurred by it is, so income and cost. Cost is 4,500. Write the ratio of the daily income to the cost. So this is the ratio. Now they are asking simplify this answer. So how you simplify? You can divide by 100. That means these two zeros get cancelled out. Then divide by 5. 5 times 1, 5. 3 remaining for 30, that's 6. 5 times 9. Can you simplify further? 16 and 9 not divisible by any other factor. So what's the ratio? Ratio is 16 to 9. Now look at the third question. In a certain scale diagram, an actual distance of 1000 meters is represented by 2 centimeters. Express this scale as a ratio. So here this is a map scale. So map value and the actual value. So it says the map, 2 centimeter of the map represent 1000 meters in the scale. Now look at these two. One is in centimeter, the other one is meters. If you want to write down the ratio, you have to convert to the same unit. So we'll convert meters to centimeter. So you need to multiply by 100. So first thing I'll convert 2 centimeters to 1000 into 100 centimeters. Now in a ratio you don't need to write down the units. So I can ignore units and write 2 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 zeros. Then scale. Scale you can simplify and write. So I can divide this by 2 and write 1, 2. Divide by 2, you get 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. 50,000. 1 to 50,000 is the scale for this one. Now we'll look at the fourth question. The gravitational force on Earth is 6 times the gravitational force on the Moon. So we'll write Earth and Moon. So which one is bigger? Gravitation on Earth is 6 times. So 6 to 1 ratio given. Therefore, the ratio of the weight of an object on the Moon to the weight of the object on Earth is 1 to 6. So here they have given other way round. How much would the weight of an astronaut be on the Moon? So here if this is given, weight on Earth is 540, they are asking what's the weight on the Moon. So here how can I find? So here this is direct proportion. So if this is direct, what's the method I taught you? You can use cross multiplication, or you can find out what's the ratio here and see how much here, how many sixes for 540 and get the value. Or easily we can do 6x equals 540. So what is x? 540 divided by 6. You get 90. So what's the weight on the moon? That's 90 newtons. We'll look at the fifth question. It says to make a cement mixture, cement and sand are mixed together in the ratio 1 to 6. So what is given 1 to 6? 1 is cement and 6 is for sand. What would be the fraction of cement in such a mixture? So how can I find this one as a fraction? So here, to find out the fraction, you need to find out the total. So total is 1 plus 6, 7 parts are there. So as a fraction, we can write 1 over 7 for cement, 6 over 7 for sand. So what's the first part? They ask what would be the fraction of cement. So what's the fraction for cement? 1 over 7. Then the second part, they ask how many pans of cement are required for 18 pans of sand. So here, if you know that this is 1 to 6 ratio and it's given 18 pans of sand. So if this is 18, what's this number? So again, this is direct proportion. So you can see how you get 18 from 6. 6 times 3. So you do the same thing here. 1 times 3, you get 3. Or you can use the other method. You can cross multiply and find out the unknown value. So 6x equals 18. X is equal to 18 divided by 6. You get 3. So here, how many pans of cement? 3 pans of cement. Now look at the third one. A certain bag of cement contains 5 pans of cement. If it is necessary to make a cement mixture using the whole bag, how many pans of sand are required? So in the bag there are 5 pans of cement. We know the cement to sand ratio 1 to 6. Now the cement one is 5 pans are there. So you're asking how many pans you need from sand. So here this is the unknown value. So this is also direct proportion. You can cross multiply and find, or you see how you get 5. 1 times 5. So you do the same multiplication on the other side. 6 times 5, you are getting 30. So here we'll do cross multiplication. 1 times x, 6 times 5, 30. So here you get 30 pans of sand you need for 5 pans of cement. Now look at the fourth part. Find separately the number of pans of cement and the number of pans of sand that are required to make 70 pans of the cement mixture. So they have given the total amount of pans for the mixture is 70 pans. But we know the fraction between cement to sand is 1 over 7 to 6 over 7. So if the total number is 70 pans, we can straight away find out by multiplying this by 70. So 6 over 7 multiplied by 70. So what's this value? 70 divided by 7. This is 10 pans of cement, and when you simplify this, you get 60 pans of sand. So this is cement and this one is sand. Now we'll look at what are inverse proportion. So we discussed direct proportions. When one variable increases, the other also increases, we call those are direct proportions. So what are inverse proportions? Opposite way. So here, if one variable increases and the other variable decreases, we call those are inverse proportions or indirect proportions. Can you give an example? Now think about, I want to paint this room and I'm hiring workers. So I'm hiring 5 workers to paint this room. So they mentioned that they need 6 days. So 5 men complete this work, they need 6 days. If I want to reduce number of workers, what happens to number of days? If I want 2 people to work in this task, what happens? The number of days should be increased. So this should be more than 6. So when number of people decreases, what happens to number of days? It's increasing. So that's why this example is related to inverse proportions. Now we'll see how we can deal with questions related to inverse proportions. Now when you are dealing with inverse proportions, you need to know about number of man days. Now we'll look at what is 1 man day means. Now here, think about an example. 5 men can complete a task within 6 days. And I want 2 people to work in this task and I want how many days I need. Okay, so 5 people need 6 days. What about 1 man? So 1 man needs 30 days. So we call that value is the number of man days. So here we can write 5 men can work for 6 days. So 1 man can work within 30 days. So we call this is number of man days. So here what we can write? So number of man days becomes number of people, number of men multiplied by number of days. So here we can find out 1 man how many days needed to complete a task. Now we'll look at example 1 in your textbook. In this question it says 5 men 8 days to complete a certain task. So here men and number of days. 5 men, 8 days. Find the number of days required by 10 men to complete the same task. We'll put X. So here I'll teach you 2 methods to use when you get inverse proportions. So my first method is, earlier we used cross multiplication for direct proportions. Now what we do? We multiply horizontally to get the value. So first I'll do my short method. So here 5 times 8, 40 is equal to 10 times x, 10x. X equals 40 divided by 10, you get 4. So that means 10 men need 4 days to complete the task. So what's the other method? So other method is we can write with man days. So here 1 man can complete the task using 5 times 8, that's 40 days. Then for 10 men, how many days? 10 men, you have to divide this by 10. So 40 divided by 10, you get 4 days. So you can use any method to find out the answer. Now we'll look at second example. It says if it takes 5 men 8 days to complete a task. How many men are required to complete the task in 2 days? Now, number of days given, that should be 2. So you're asking how many men we need to complete the task. So if I'm using my method, we use horizontal multiplication. 5 times 8 is equal to 2x. So 40 equals 2x. That means x equals 40 divided by 2, 20 men needed. If I am using the other method, first I can find out number of man days. So number of man days to complete by 1 man. So here 40 days we need. Then if there are 2 days, how many men we needed? So number of men needed to complete within 2 days. So you need to divide this by 2. So 20 men needed. Now we look at example number 3. It says food sufficient for 12 days for a group of 40 men. 12 days for how many men? 40 men. At a work site has been stored at the site. If 8 more men join the workforce after 6 days, for how many more days will the food that is remaining be sufficient? So what's the man days for 1 man? Man days. So here we know this is 12 times 40. So what's the answer? We can write 0, 4 times 2, 8, 4 times 1, 4. 480 days for sufficient. So the food is sufficient for 1 man for 480 days. So now we'll look at, we know days, min and man days. So here I'll write here days, min and man days. We know that this is 12, this is 40 and how many altogether? 480 days. But 6 days completed with 40 men. So how many man days completed? 6 times 40, you get 240 days already completed. So what is the remaining part? Remaining part is 480 subtract 240. So you get another 240 days. So here we can write 240 remaining. But we know 8 more men join. So here earlier 40 and now 40 plus 8. So how many men now? 48 men, and you are asked how many days now they can survive. So here we know this into this is equal to total number of man days. So here if you take 48x, you should get 240. So what is x? 240 divided by 48. We see this is double, this is 1, and so 10, and this is 2. 10 divided by 2, you get 5. That means after 6 days they can survive only another 5 days. Now if I am using my method, how can I do? So here first you need to find out the completed task. So this part you have to do, and then for the next one you can write 1240, and if this is 48 number of people, you are asking what should be the value. But here what happens here? Number of man days is different now because half of the work already completed. So here when you are writing this one, that's wrong. So here we can ignore that. But if you are using without x, how can we use the other method? You can write total number of man days is equal to 480 used man days or completed man days, that's 6 times 40, that's 240. So the remaining man days you can subtract 480 minus 240, you get 240, and then you can find out number of days required for 48 men. So 240 divided by 48, you get 5. So either you can use algebraic method using x or normal division method. Now we'll look at exercise 10.1 in your textbook, and you need to answer these questions. For each of the situations described below, select the suitable answer from A, B and C and write it within the brackets next to it. First part it says is not a proportion, is a direct proportion, is an inverse proportion. So before that, what's a proportion? If the ratios are in the same rate, we call proportions. Direct proportion means one increases, the other also increases. Inverse means one increases, the other decreases. Now we'll look at these examples. The number of soldiers in a camp and the amount of food stored for their consumption. So normally when number of people increases, the amount of food decreases. So what's the first one? First one is inverse. So that's C. Now we look at the second one, the radius of a circle and its area. So what's the relationship between area and the area of a circle and the radius? You know, the formula is pi r squared. Now think about a small example. If radius is 2, what's the area? 2 times 2, that's 4 pi. So that's A equals 4 pi. If radius is 3, what's the ratio? You get 3 times 3, 9 pi. So here, when you are calculating the ratios, we see that these are not according to the same rate. So this is not double or anything. So here, because of that, this is not direct proportions, and we can say that it's not a proportion. So we can choose A for that. Now look at third part. The distance travelled by a vehicle travelling at a uniform speed and the time taken for the journey. So the speed is the same. So here distance is there. So what's the formula? Distance is equal to speed into time. Now it says travelling at a uniform speed. So this is a constant value. So what happens? Distance increases, the time also increases. So here, is it a direct proportion? Yes, it's a direct proportion. What about fourth one? The length and the breadth of a rectangle of constant area. So if you take a rectangle, length and breadth, how you get the area? Area is length into breadth. And it says this is constant. So what happens? If area is constant, when length increases, the breadth decreases and you get the same area. So this should be one increasing and the other one decreasing. So this is inverse proportion. What about the last one? The amount of sugar bought at a store by a person and the amount paid for it. We know that when you buy more, you have to pay more. So that's direct proportion. So it's B. Now we'll look at question number 2. It says it makes 8 men 9 days to complete a certain task. So men and number of days. 8 men, 9 days. How many days will it take one man to complete the same task? So that means man days. So here, number of days for one man. So this is 8 times 9. That's 72 days. So second part, what's the magnitude of the task in man days? So we already found number of days for one man. So same answer, 72 days. Third part, if 12 men are assigned the task, how many days will it take them to complete the task? So we'll write down 8 men, 9 days, and if it's 12 men, how many days? So we can use any method. If I use my method, we horizontally multiply these two. 8 times 9, 72 is equal to 12 times x, 12x. X equals to 72 over 12, you get 6. So you need 6 days to complete the task with 12 men. If you are using the other method, you can write number of men days and man days. So here 8, 9, you get total 72 man days if this is 12. So 12 multiplied by this number should be 72. So same number of man days you need to complete the same task. So 12x is equal to 72. X equals 72 divided by 12, 6 days. Now we look at the third question. A landowner estimates that it would take 10 men 8 days to clear his land. He hires 12 men for the initial 2 days. So we'll write down the information, men and number of days. A landowner estimates that it would take 10 men 8 days. So how many man days are there? 10 times 8, 80 man days altogether. So here first 2 days 12 men. What is the magnitude of the task in man days? So that's the first part. So first part, the answer is 80 man days. Second one, how much of the task will be completed during the first 2 days? First 2 days, how many men? 12 men worked. So how many man days completed? 12 times 2. 12 times 2 is 24. So the answer for the second part, 24 man days completed. Third part, if the landowner wishes to get the task done in 6 days, how many more men should he employ for the next 4 days? Now already done 24 out of 80. So what is the remaining part? So for part 3, you need remaining man days. So here altogether 80, subtract 24, you get 56 man days are there for 4 days. So we have 56 man days for 4 days. So how many men we needed? So we can use this formula. 4 times x is equal to 56. So what is x? 56 divided by 4, you get 4 times 1 and 4 times 4. So we need 14 men complete the task within 6 days. Now we'll look at the fourth question. In a certain farm, there was sufficient food for 12 cattle for 10 days. So here, number of cattle, 12, and number of days, 10. After 2 days, another 4 cattle were bought and brought to the farm. For how many days is the food in the farm sufficient for one of the cattle? So that means they are asking number of cattle days. So here 12 cattle for 10 days. So here how many cattle days? 12 times 10. So 120 days are there. So here first part, how many days we need? How many days for one cattle? 120 days. Then the second part, what is the reduction in the number of days for which the food is sufficient due to increase in the number of cattle? Now for 2 days, after 2 days, another 4 cattle were bought. Now 2 days completed with 12 cattle. So what's the value? 12 times 2, 24 completed. So how many remaining days are there? 120 altogether. 24 already completed. So subtract these two, you get 96. So 96 days, cattle days remaining. And after that they bought how many altogether? They bought another 4 cattle. So 4 cattle means earlier 12, 12 plus 4, 16 cattle now. So here we can write down 16 here. Now they are asking how many days they can survive. What is the reduction in the number of days for which the food is sufficient? So first, if this is normal way, how many days for one cattle? 120. For 12 cattle, only 10 days they can survive. But after 4 more cattle in the farm, what happens to number of days? Number of days should be reduced. So here how can we do? So we know now 16x is equal to 96. That's the sufficient amount of food for 16 cattle. So how many days now? You can take 96 divided by 16. So here 6 times 6, 6 times 16 is 96. So this is 6 days. Now what's the total number of days? Already 2 days gone and then another 6 days. Altogether how many days now? Altogether 8 days. 8 days are there sufficient. 8 days sufficient to survive with this amount of food. But earlier 10 days. So what's the reduction? So what's the reduction of the number? Reduction is 10 minus 8. That means 2 days for the second part. Now we'll look at 5th question. It says food sufficient for 24 trainees for 8 days was stored at a certain training camp. However, 2 days after the camp commenced, 6 of the trainees had to leave the camp due to illness. Show that the remaining food is sufficient for 2 extra days than was initially planned. Now here, how many man days are there? 24 trainees for 8 days. So food is sufficient for 8 days. So 24 times 8. So what is 24 times 8? 8 times 4, 32, 3 remaining. 8 times 2, 16 plus 3, 19. So 192 man days are there. But it says 2 days after. So 2 days already completed with 24 trainees. So how many completed man days? 24 times 2, that's 48 completed. So what's the remaining part? Remaining number of man days is 192 subtract 48. So what you get? 4, 12, 1 remaining 5. 5 and 9 you get 4, 144. So remaining number of days 144. Now what's the next part? It says after 2 days 6 of the trainees had to leave. Now how many trainees are now? 24 before, 6 had to leave. So you get 18 trainees are there after 2 days. Show that the remaining food. Now, remaining food sufficient for 2 extra days. So we'll find out how many days they can survive with this number. So we see remaining man days 144, 18x, 18 times x is equal to 144, x is equal to 144 divided by 18. So divide by 2, you get 9, divide by 2, 72, 9 times 8. So here another 8 days. Now earlier, if this is 8, 8 plus 2, now what's the total number of days? So here now 8 plus 2, 10 days. Earlier, what happens? It was sufficient for 8 days. And now can you see how many days extra now? 10 and 8 difference, you get 2 days. So we can say extra number of days minus 8. So 2 extra days they can survive. Question number 6. A particular tank of water can be emptied in 4 hours using 3 equal pumps. The 3 pumps were used to empty the tank. However, one pump stopped working after an hour. Thereafter, the tank was emptied using the other 2 pumps. Find how much more time was required to empty the tank due to breakdown of one pump. So in this question, one tank and how many pipes are there? 3 pipes altogether, and you need 4 hours to empty this tank. So now time I can write 4 hours. However, one pump stopped and how many remaining? 2. But here after 1 hour. So 1 hour it worked. So here 1 hour worked with 3 pipes. So here we'll find out the number of days for one pipe. 1 pipe days. So here 3 times 4. So you need 12 days with one pump. So if this is with 3 pipes with 1 hour, so what's the completed task? 3 times 1, that's 3. This is completed with 3 pipes. So what's remaining? So we can see remaining number of days is 12 minus 3, that's equal to 9. But we know now 2 pipes are working and they are asking how many hours you need to empty the tank. So here we know, according to this one, 2x is equal to 9. So what is x? 9 divided by 2, that means 4.5 hours you need to complete this task. So find how much more time was required to empty the tank due to breakdown. Earlier 4 hours needed, but now 4.5 hours. So what's the extra time you need? So you subtract extra time needed. 4.5 hours subtract 4 hours. So that means 0.5 hours. So basically when you convert to minutes, you multiply by 60. So 60 divided by 2, that means 30 minutes you need extra. Now look at question number 7. It takes half an hour for a certain vehicle traveling at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour to complete a certain journey. So here it says number of hours and the speed is given. So speed and number of hours. So speed is 40. Number of hours takes half an hour. Half an hour for that. Find the time in minutes that it would take the vehicle to complete the same journey if it travels at a speed of 50. So you are asked to find out the time in minutes. Now here half means in hours. So I'll convert this to minutes and write. So number of minutes, I can write half times 60, that's 30 minutes. I can erase this one. Instead of half, I can write 30 minutes. Now we know this is inverse proportion. So we can easily use the method with horizontal multiplication. So this is inverse proportion. You can multiply horizontally. 40 times 30 is equal to 50x. So what is x? 40 times 30 divide by 50. So 0 get cancelled out. 5 times 8. 8 times 3. 24. So this is 24 minutes. Needed to travel when the speed is 50 kilometers per hour. We'll look at question number 8. It says 4 men who were given the responsibility of completing a task were able to finish only 2/3 of it by working 6 hours a day for 3 days. Here there's a hint given. Man hours. So here you need to know here what is man hours means. Earlier, number of days worked for one man we call man days. So what is man hours here? Man hours is number of men multiplied by number of days multiplied by number of hours per day. So here in this question you need this one to find out the number of hours. So here in the first part it says what is the magnitude of the task in man hours. So we'll see the given information. 4 men can complete a task with 3 days and each day 6 hours. So how many man hours are there? So first part you can write 4 times 3 times 6. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 6. 72 man hours are there. Now we need first part. This is 72 man hours to complete 2/3 of a task. So 2/3 of a task, 72 man hours. To complete the full task, we need to find out 3 parts out of 3. So what you do? Take 72, divide by 2 and multiply by 3. So how many man hours altogether we need? 2 times 36 times 3. 8, 3 times 3, 9 plus 1, 10. So 108 man hours needed to complete the full task. In the second part it says the 4 men decided to complete the task on the next day. How many hours will they have to work to achieve this? Now we know if we are working for 72 man hours, they can complete 2/3 of work. So first day they completed 2/3 of work. So here completed number of hours 72. So altogether 108 you need. So what's the remaining number of hours? 108 minus 72, you get 36. Now they want to complete this task next day. So that means another one more day. So here we can use 4 men needs 1 day and how many hours for 1 day. So here we know now the remaining number of man hours is equal to 36. So 36 is equal to 4 times x. So 4x equals 36. So what is x? 36 divided by 4, you get 9. So that means those 4 men need to do work for 9 hours per day to complete within 2 days. So here this is 9 hours they have to do work. Now we'll look at example 1 in your textbook. It says 8 men work for 9 days to complete a task. However, it was possible to employ only 6 men. How many days will it take these 6 men to complete the task? Now earlier 8 men for 9 days. So that means how many man days are there? 8 times 9, 72. But now only 6 men can work. So we need how many days to complete that work? But you get the same number of man days. So we can use algebraic method and write down 6x is equal to 72. X equals 72 divided by 6. You need 12 days to complete the task. Now we'll look at example number 2. In this example, it says a group of men who completed a certain task in 9 days recruited 3 more men to work on a similar task. If together they completed the task in 6 days, find how many men there were in the initial group. Suppose the number of men who were in the first group is x. Then according to the data, we obtain the equation. So here we can use algebraic method to find out the solution. So here it says group of men completed certain task for 9 days. So we don't know how many men. So we can put x. Again it says 3 more men to work on a similar task. A group of men who completed a certain task in 9 days recruited 3 more men to work on a similar task. So recruited more. 3 workers means this becomes x plus 3. Find how many men there were in the initial group. So here, how many man days are there? X men for 9 days. This should be 9x. So they want to complete together within 6 days now. So here together this is 6 days. But we know man days to complete this task is 9x. So we can form an equation. 6 into x plus 3 is the total number of man days. That's equal to 9x. Now we'll try to solve for x. So 6 times x, 6x, 6 times 3, 18 is equal to 9x. So how can we solve? 9x minus 6x, you get 3x is equal to 18. X should be 18 divided by 3, you get 6. So how many people were there initially? 6 men. Now we'll look at exercise 10.2. Question number 1, it says, it took 5 men 4 days to complete a certain task. So here, number of men and number of days. 5 men, 4 days to complete a task. How many days will 4 men require to complete the task? We can put x there. So here we can use 2 methods. One is, we know this is indirect or inverse proportions. You can horizontally multiply and find out the answer, or you can use using man days. So here, if you are using this method, 5 times 4 is equal to 4x. So what is x? 20 divided by 4, you get x as 5. That means you need 5 days. If you are using the other method, you can do using man days. 5 times 4 is 20 for one man to complete the task. So here that's equal to 4x. 4x is 20 and x equals 5. Now we'll look at the next question. It was necessary to engage 9 men for 4 days. This is also inverse proportion, number of men with number of days. 9 men for 4 days at 4 hours per day to clear a certain land. Now, number of hours also given. So that's 5 hours. How many men working 6 hours per day? 6 hours per day can complete the task in 10 days. So they are asking what is this number. So here we can calculate man hours by 9 times. Multiply everything, number of men multiplied by number of days into number of hours per day. So here 9 times 4 times 5. So what's the answer? 5 times 4 is 20. 20 times 9, 180 man hours. So here same man hours needed to complete the task. So with this equation you can find out what is x. So here 10 times x, 10x times 6 should be equal to 180. So you can solve for x. So x equals 180 divided by 10 and 6. So try to simplify. 6 times 3, 30 divided by 10 times, you get 3 men needed to complete this task within 10 days and 6 hours per day. We'll look at third question. It says a certain task can be completed in 6 days by 18 men. 18 men. How many days needed? 6 days. It is expected to complete another task which is twice the size of the initial task in 9 days. Find how many men are required to complete the second task in 9 days. You are asked to find how many men needed, but it's given the task is double as the previous one. What's the size of the first task? What's the man days? We know 18 men needed for 6 days. So 18 times 6. 6 times 8, 48. 4 remaining. 6 times 1, 6. 6 plus 4, 10. So there are 108 man days. So one man needs 108 days to complete the task. But the new task is doubled. So that means you need to multiply this by 2. 2 times 8, 16. 2 times 1. So now for the next task, they need 216 man days. We know 9x should be equal to 216. This is for the second task. So what is x? 216 divided by 9. 9 times 2, 18. 3 remaining, 9 times 4. So for the second task to be completed, you need 24 men. Now we'll take another question. So this is not in your textbook. So we'll try to find out the answer for this one. I'm giving this because this is different to previous questions. So we'll see how we can do this question. It says male person can complete a task within 3 days and a female person needs 6 days to complete the same task. If both works together, how many days needed to complete the same task? So this question is slightly different. We can't use man days for this question. So we'll use another method to solve this problem. Okay, so we'll see if we take male person to complete one task, he needs 3 days. So within 1 day, how much work he can complete? He can complete 1/3 of work. So that's the male person. Now we look at female person. So female person within 1 day, how much work she can complete? Six days to complete the full work. So within 1 day, you can complete 1/6. Now they are working together. If they are working together within 1 day, how much work they can complete? Together within 1 day, how much work they can complete? 1/3 plus 1/6. So what's the answer? We can convert to the same denominator. You get 2 plus 1, that's 3/6, or half of the work they can complete it together within 1 day. So that means half of the work done in 1 day. So to complete the work, 2/2 of work done in 2 days. In this unit, We discussed about direct proportion and mainly indirect proportion. So first thing, when you get proportion question, identify whether it's direct or indirect. How can we do that? When one increases and the other also increases, we say those are direct proportions. When one increases and the other decreases, we call those are inverse proportion. So you can use any method to solve inverse proportion. One method is using man days or man hours, and the other method is horizontal multiplication that I taught you.